Back at it again with the Mobius Dickus, Chapter 20, All Astir. This is another quick chapter that I won't spend too much time on. I think it's kind of a comic relief chapter more than anything, which we've seen before. So let's take a look at what I would say is pretty funny here. So we have people trying to stock up the ship for its long voyage, and then we get this great passage. For besides the great length of the whaling voyage, the numerous articles peculiar to the prosecution of the fishery, and the impossibility of replacing them at the remote harbors usually frequented, it must be remembered that of all ships, whaling vessels are the most exposed to accidents of all kinds, and especially to the destruction and loss of the very things upon which the success of the voyage most depends. Hence, the spare boats, spare spars, and spare lines and harpoons, and spare everything's almost but a spare captain and duplicate ship. I just thought the idea of a ship carrying a duplicate ship was pretty funny. It seems to be getting at the idea of self-reference and the idea that you cannot contain a system within the system, which is very Gödel-esque. But alas, I won't think about it too hard. I just find it a funny image of trying to stow a spare boat on a boat, which would theoretically take up the same amount of size. Then I find, again, the wordplay here about Aunt Charity pretty funny. Never did a woman deserve better her name, which was Charity, Aunt Charity, as everyone called her, and like a sister of Charity did this charitable Aunt Charity bustle about hither and thither, ready to turn her hand and heart to anything that promised to yield safety, comfort, and consolation to all on board a ship to which her beloved brother Bildad was concerned, and to which she herself owned a score or two of well-saved dollars. I think that Melville is doing some cheeky stuff with alliteration, having the constant repetition of charity, charity, called, charity, charitable, charity. Hither and thither have an assonance there, and then we have hand and heart alliterated, then we have comfort and consolation, then we have board a ship in which beloved brother Bildad was concerned. So I think he's just kind of having a little bit of a jocular or whimsical moment here before we get to a lot less jocular and a lot less whimsical style once the ship actually takes off. I also found this passage funny where we have Peleg and his constant yelling. Every once in a while, Peleg came hobbling out of his whalebone den, roaring at the men down the hatchways, roaring up to the riggers at the masthead, and then concluded by roaring back into his wigwam. I find the last clause is the funny one because he roars at people in different locations on the boat, but even as he goes back into his room, he's roaring. It seems like Peleg only has one volume, and it's roaring. And then finally, this one little yellow passage brings just a touch of seriousness to what is otherwise a rather, whimsical chapter when it says, "But when a man suspects any wrong, it sometimes happens that if he be already involved in the matter, he sensibly strives to cover up his suspicions even from himself. And much this way it was with me. I said nothing and tried to think nothing." And so obviously I've outlined that in yellow because I think it does highlight how talented human beings can be at self-deception, whereas few people, I think, lie to themselves explicitly about the world. It's not like if I was, terrified of heights, I would be good at lying to myself about the fact that gravity doesn't exist anymore, but rather people are very good at lying about themselves to themselves. And that's exactly what Ishmael is doing when he considers all of the ambiguities and all of the uncertainties that seem to come with getting on a boat with a captain that he has not yet met, who he has gotten weird forebodings about from Elijah, etc. So once again, if we're thinking about yellow as passages that deal with interpretation or knowledge and truth, sometimes we are far better at finding out the truth about the world than admitting the truth about ourselves. Okay, chapter 20, another quick one in the books. See you in chapter 21.